Yeah, I'd like to back up Warren on the timeliness of getting that out of there, and also just to consider that a lot of things that have been done in Friendship Forest have been volunteer. So while Friendship Forest has been maintained on a lot of levels volunteer, and this is like one big project that we've asked for the city to work with us on. So, like we constantly have people going in there and doing things, blood, sweat, and tears. So that would be something to really think about as well. Okay.
Council? Okay, seeing none, let's move forward on planning and zoning. On agenda item D5 to discuss the redesignation of the city planner by resolution. Mr. Parker?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since November 2010, the role of city planner has been filled via consultant services provided by Pond & Company. In March 2012, Mr. Jason Gaines was hired as the city's first ever planning and development manager. Since then, the planning and development manager has assumed many of the administrative tasks regarding zoning, permitting, and land use that were previously delegated to Pond & Company. Considering that the planning and development manager is an employee of the city and operates in a day-to-day capacity as an administrator of matters relative to planning and development, it may be more appropriate to designate the planning and development manager as the official city planner. And so staff's recommendation is to officially designate the city planner per Chapter 15, Section 15-10 of the Code of Ordinance, and designate the planning and development manager as the city planner. And what you have in your meeting package is a resolution for consideration next Tuesday to make that designation official.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Any council discussion? Steve? Yes, Steve.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Okay. That's wonderful use of our resources, and plus it's going to save us some money. Yeah. Okay, we're going to move forward. Any comments? Okay. So we're going to move forward on agenda item D6 to discuss the RFQ for planning and engineering consulting services. Mr. Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Along those same lines of utilizing our in-house staff services, as everyone knows, the city currently utilizes consultants to assist with the delivery of planning and engineering services. As we stated earlier, in November 2010, the city entered into a contract with Pond & Company to provide planning and engineering services, as well as reviews of zoning, subdivision, land disturbance, various and similar land use activities, all on an on-call basis. The contract consisted of a master's agreement and 2 subcontracts. The subcontract for planning and engineering services expired as of October 31st, 2011. The subcontract for reviews expires on October 1st, 2012. As you know, we hired in March Mr. Gaines as the planning and development manager. And since then, he has begun to gradually assume many of the administrative tasks regarding zoning, permitting, and land use that were previously delegated to Pond. Because of this shift in duties, the need for consultant services has changed. While there remains still need for on-call consultation services, the quantity and frequency is not as great as it has previously been due to the presence of the planning and development manager. This, coupled with the pending expiration of Pond's existing contract with the city, staff proposes to solicit qualified consultant firms to be considered for a new contract with the city by advertising a request for qualifications. And so this is a good time to, not only are we changing and reducing the scope of services, but this is also a good time to just put it out on the street and see if there are other companies that would solicit this.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. No, seriously.
I was kind of a standing.
Wrong?
Sorry.
It was wrong initially to the company to award I'm sorry. It was wrong initially to award this job the company who revised the whole ordinance. It would have been beneficial if somebody else did that work. It was very, very wrong. Thank you.
Well, the city heard you.
Yeah, I've said this for the last 3-4 years.
Well, see, it works.
So staff's recommendation, we're just asking for a approval to go out for bid on a new contract.
That's one. Yeah.
What's the schedule we're looking at in terms of a proposed RFQ deadline?
Once it's approved on Tuesday, Mr. Gaines, what did we say? We're not going to put this out for 3 weeks. What was it? 4 weeks? What, 3 weeks?
Oh, he said, I think you. We can argue about, let's argue about that. Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I propose that we put it out for 2 weeks. Well, we can't extend that, but I propose we put it out for 2 weeks. And my timetable was a little skewed in the wrong direction because we had to come here first to the work session and discuss, and then we'll go to the regular meeting next Thursday. But yeah, the idea was to advertise for 2 weeks and then spend another 3 weeks to a month and as far as evaluating, interviewing, and giving other staff, and you all an opportunity to weigh in, as well as Planning and Zoning Committee. So we hope to have a new contract awarded to begin in early October.
Right. So the timeline is that we'll have this all teed up and ready for a vote the regular meeting in October.
But the review committee is going to be composed of staff, or are you going to bring in anybody outside of the organization to assist in the process?
We actually did think about and decided that we would ask for some outside assistance with this. Jason, you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
No, pretty much what you just said.
Subject to their time and availability, there are other people in positions similar to Jason's, or there are resources that we have at DeKalb County that we may reach out and see if we can get some assistance from them. If not, I think that your current staff is perfectly capable of doing this themselves.
All right, thank you. Any more comments? Thank you, Mr. Gaines. All right, we're going to move forward on agenda item D7, proposed public hearing for 8, 9, 12 council meeting, request amendment of a zoning condition at 4312 and 4320, responsibly on Mr. Parker.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and keeping with our increased capabilities and capacity for staffing, the planning and development manager from this point forward will give a staff report on these public hearing and zoning related items. And so I'm going to defer to Mr. Gaines.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barker. I believe you do have some information before you regarding that request to amend or modify zoning condition at 4312, 4320 East Ponce de Leon. Is the property owned by Mr. Barani Looney. Property was originally rezoned back in March of 2011 from NR3 to RC. It's got 2 structures on a site. One is proposed to be used as an office building, and the other as some sort of eating and drinking establishment. The applicant, when granted the rezoning, had 9 conditions associated with that rezoning. And one of those was that there was to be a sidewalk installed along the entire frontage of the property on the West Smith Street side of the lot. Applicant requested that condition be removed and instead build a walkway from the corner at East Ponce and West Smith Street up to the front door of the closest structure from that point. Primary reason for that were 2 reasons. One was to save a tree that would have to be removed if sidewalk were built along the West Smith Street side due to interfering with the critical root zone of that tree. The other was Mr. Newton's desire to try to cut costs, if you will, as much as he could, as little or as much as he could, by trying to cut down on his amount of impervious surface. Twofold reason. Staff report was developed by Pond for this particular item, and in the analysis, that our recommendation was for approval. Discussion at the council meeting. I wish you guys had the minutes, but they weren't ready before this was distributed to you all. But the discussion was whether or not that was a legitimate concern or discussion. Ultimately, the Planning and Zoning Committee voted to recommend denial of that request. So that's the official recommendation coming forward from them to you next Thursday at your regular meeting. And with that, I'm sure you've all looked over some, but I'll entertain any questions that you have regarding the paperwork. Yes, sir.
Is it, they were denying, or they were recommending denial of the sidewalk issue?
Yes, removing condition number 9 from their original rezoning, yes.
Okay, and what, the part that I don't understand is he wanted to do what instead of the sidewalk, put a sidewalk from where to where?
He wants to build a walkway from the corner at East Ponce West Smith to the front door of the closest structure on the site.
So that's that house on the corner?
Yeah.
Yes.
So somehow or another he would build that up, or?
It's like a huge incline.
Okay, I'll look at that. So, and then please just refresh me again, they recommended denial of that based on?
Based on what was originally granted in the rezoning, and there were questions as to whether or not he's complied with everything that he agreed to do when he was initially granted zoning. Mr. Nooney has an active building permit for that site, yet he has not broken ground. He has not begun any work on site as of this point. And he was well within his right to do so, even while waiting on a decision for this amendment to the zoning conditions. And I believe that was part of their thinking, their rationale as well. You know, the fact that he hasn't, begun any substantial work on the site.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions about this whole issue. I mean, this is one of the original requirements that allowed him to rezone and subdivide this property in the first place. And I see in his proposal that he's going to be opening an eating and drinking establishment in that first house. Is that the correct house, the one
Yes, sir.
in the street?
Yes.
And I think both these houses are on a septic tank. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I don't know how he can do an eating and drinking establishment unless he expands.
Only having bits and pieces of the history since this happened about a year before I arrived here. That's something that was discussed initially as well. And of course, DeKalb County Public Health has to grant him the proper permits in order to open a restaurant, a full-service restaurant with grease trap and hoods and all that stuff. And they've made it crystal clear that he cannot do so unless he has a sewer connection. Now, as far as an eating and drinking establishment, I think the belief is that it would be some type of coffee shop or something. Again, I just have bits and pieces of it.
That still, I think, falls under that same category, that requirements are going to be a grease trap and whatnot. But the point of that is that if he starts doing the site work, puts in a parking lot, and makes these suggested changes that he wants to do, with or without the sidewalk, he's going to come back and redo it to satisfy his request to make it a eating and drinking establishment. And the fact that there's a couple of trees there, we've made, in the city, we've made a lot of, allowances for people just to get them to be able to do business or whatever, and to go from a sidewalk that was required with the original agreement to go down the side of the street to get to the next phase of development. It's going to be the next property. And The drawing that was presented from the original plan for Teddy's property on Smith Street, that's a vital piece of sidewalk that needs to be installed. And for him to change that from a sidewalk that's going to accommodate pedestrians, wheelchairs, and bicycles, or whatever pedestrian traffic might be necessary to use that sidewalk, to go to a sidewalk that only goes to the front door of his proposed eating and drinking establishment, I think is absurd.
I thought that was, part of the concern that the planning and zoning committee had as well. I think the big thing for Mr. Nooney, well, other than what I had already stated, one of the big things was that sidewalk on West Smith is pretty much just going along the frontage of his property, and that's it. There's no connecting sidewalk on the East Pont side, and